these significant stages in our lives are still very much done in an unhealthy rite of passage way. It's like, it's so neat. And I know from my work, it's what's been so missing for so many of the mothers. And then obviously birth is a huge one. And I think, the work of matrescence around understanding that rite of passage from maiden to mother is a huge transformation. And you are taken away from, the environment that you were in previously, single womanhood, a relationship with just you and your partner, into this whole new world of now I have to care fully for this little being. And I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. In my own experience, motherhood was the deep sort of cracking open into a whole different set of values and realizations of what I wanted in life and what were my priorities, and also into my own wounds and experience.
Welcome to Wildflow, the podcast with me, your host, Charlotte Pointeau. I'm a wild feminine cycle coach here for the awakened woman who is ready to reclaim her body, menstrual cycle and feminine power, and to live, love and lead in flow with nature's wisdom. In this podcast, I'll share how you can live in sync with your menstrual cycle and life seasons, heal your relationship with your womb and rites of passages, and embody your wild feminine as a multi-passionate woman in life, mothering and business. It's your time to flourish as a cyclical being in this modern world. Are you ready? Let's flow. Welcome to Wildflow. This week I'm sat down with a wonderful woman who I admire, and she is Alita Blanchard. Alita is a mother of 4 young boys, including a stillborn son, Remy, on the New South Wales coast. She is a trauma-informed, conscious parent coach, emotional release coach, women's circle, and rites of passage facilitator. She provides regular mothers' circles, workshops, events, listening time, and parent coaching programs. Alita is passionate about creating a safe space for mothers to feel heard and seen in the intensity of their motherhood journey. She supports and guides mothers in their transformation through motherhood and helps to bring awareness to their own needs and emotions so they can feel more aligned, aware, and connected to themselves and their children. Recently, Alita invited me to speak to her parenting coaching group of mothers about the importance of the menstrual cycle and awareness of the changes that we can experience moving through that, but also reaching back into our earlier experiences of our first period, and also how we became mothers, to really inform our awareness and understanding of how we experience motherhood, womanhood, particularly right now in this moment. And I've brought Alita onto this podcast today because, she really wanted to talk about the importance of normalizing a lot of the big emotions that we experience, particularly in motherhood, especially in the season of life with having small children. And I really wanted to bridge that conversation between the rites of passages, the emotions, self-awareness, support, calling in the village of support that we need, and really being sovereign and having awareness can empower us to nurture ourselves and to heal ourselves from the past to the present and from within to without as well. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation, whether you are currently in the mother season of life with children, or whether you are in this phase of life, perhaps potentially becoming a parent soon at some point down the line. And even if not, then really being using this conversation as a way to become aware of the way that you were raised, your earlier experiences, and how they might be impacting you or playing out in your life right now. So I hope that you enjoy, my loves. Thank you for being here as always. Welcome. Today we've got Alita Blanchard with us, and I'm so looking forward to a beautiful conversation about parenting, about being a cyclic person as a mother whilst looking after children and really looking after ourselves through our cycles and as our emotions come up and as we go on our wild ride of mothering and parenting. So thanks, Alita, for being here. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. And thank you for having me.
Good, good. You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. So I'd love to start, as always, with just checking in with you where you are at in your cycle, if you have one, and how it feels for you today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in my summer. So I'm in my ovulation stage, and I am feeling energetic enough after 5 months of lockdown. And I'm feeling very much, in work mode, get things done, but also needing rest all the time because the last 5 months has been really intense.
Yeah, and you've just come out of lockdown, and so have you got the house back to yourself in the day?
Yes, 3 boys all at school today. So yeah, first week back, and it's a real sign to just slow down and be present and enjoy a little bit of space while they're all at school, but also, forever noticing that need to dive in and do the next thing and follow the to-do list and get all the jobs done while they're at school. So, it's forever noticing that and slowing down as much as possible.
Wise words. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I'm in a similar boat. I have 2 days a week where I have absolutely nobody in the house, and it's just like, wow, bliss. Like just me and the country animals next door that you'll probably hear throughout, as always. The chickens and the roosters and all kinds of things happening. So it's really, I kind of find myself in the mornings going, I should dive in, but can't. I feel almost like I need to just go really slowly and really take my time to enjoy. On these days, I like to eat my breakfast by myself, wait till they've gone, even if that means waiting a bit. My husband took them all off today, and it's just like, oh, this is so nice. It's like, right, I better get moving, better get on with some stuff. But it's just so nice to have the space. Yes. And today is the first day of my bleed. So I thought it was coming last week, and then I've had 4 days of spotting, and then 1 day of, I thought nothing was happening, and I thought that was all that, and that was false alarm. So bleeding today, and this has been my shortest cycle in eternity. And I think it was 32 or 33 day cycle before today, which is big improvement on 80 days was where it's been at before. So it's all coming back together, even though I'm still breastfeeding. It's all coming back. It feels like a bit of a like a milestone, like a end of that early phase of like raising the really, really small children. Like she's 2, she's still little, obviously, but it feels like she's just had a birthday, and it's like a little phase is kind of wrapping up, which is tender and feels curious. It feels really kind of so that's me today.
I so feel that tenderness. There's forever that letting go and surrendering in motherhood, isn't it? As they grow so quickly, and you let go of the baby stage and then the toddler stage, and then they're all off to school stage. And it's big. A lot of grief can come up. It does for me anyway, and I know for a lot of the mums I work with is the never-ending grief and letting go and surrender and trust.
Yeah. And we were just saying before we started recording that they will only be this little for a while, and then they'll be we're talking about not sleeping, and then you were saying when they're teenagers we won't be sleeping because they'll be out at night, and we'll be waiting for them to get home, and it's we can spend time wishing difficult moments to pass, but there's so much beauty in each phase, and it will change. It will just change. It won't be a magic. Everything is, everything is sort of easy or whatever. Again, it's just going to keep evolving. And I think that's really a really beautiful place to start this conversation as well. So, yeah, I'd love to ask, your focus of your work is conscious and or aware parenting. I have heard both
Mm.
terms, and I would love to just ask to you what they mean, and also if there is a difference and how they differ and what it means to you. How did you come to this as well? A lot in there.
Yes. So I am a mother of four boys. I have three living and one in the stars who was stillborn 4 years ago, my wee Remy. I have been following the philosophy of aware parenting for 8 years. So aware parenting is a particular philosophy that was founded by Alita. She's a child psychologist. And I am trained in that work, but I'm not an instructor because I chose to train in the Jai Institute of Parenting philosophy, which is very similar. And I call my work conscious parenting. We also sometimes call it empowered parenting, connected parenting. It's whatever name really resonates for different people and what their focus is. A lot of the names in the parenting space are trademarked, which is just crazy, but that's the reality of it. I have landed with conscious parenting. That could change over time. For me, the focus of my work is all around a lot of the philosophies of gentle parenting, respectful parenting, responsive parenting. There's so many different names, but at the core, it's all about connection before correction. It's around a paradigm change, moving away from behaviorism, which is the focus on punishment, shame, threats, and also rewards, and moving towards a place of more connection, a place of seeing our child as an already whole being, perfect and whole already as they are, and just needing a guide, needing someone to connect with them, needing someone to understand where their brain and development is, and also where their nervous system is, and meeting them even in their really difficult and challenging behavior, listening to their big feelings like anger and rage and tears and disappointment and all the feelings that come up, and then guiding them through those challenging moments. Where my work tends to focus is on how hard that is for most of us as adults, because we weren't raised generally in that way. We weren't often met with parents who were able to sit in our big feelings with us. So most of us were raised in authoritarian homes, which is power over parenting, which is very much focused on the bribery, the rewards, the punishment, the sort of phrases of do as you're told, or stop being silly, or no crying, or get to your room, or possibly even harsher punishments such as smacking. So that was the way a lot of us were raised. And so we learned to suppress our emotions. And this is very common across the board. And then it comes up in parenting. And so when we talk about, conscious and aware parenting and all these different philosophies, it is you're going to get triggered, you're going to get activated. You may come from a place of fear and yell and rage and scream at your children. And then because that's not the kind of parent you probably wanted to be, you're going to fall into this guilt and shame cycle. So in conscious parenting, and my work in particular, it takes a very parent-centric focus of supporting the parent to understand their responses, to understand their own behaviors, to understand their own emotional wounds, and then to start a healing journey of sorts. Now, we also very normalized in our work having therapeutic support with a psychologist, a counselor, somatic body workers. We work often alongside those people with parents to support them on a healing journey, a growth journey. But my work in particular is working directly with the parent to help them understand all of their own behaviors, and then we bring in the tools and strategies. And where that started for me was with aware parenting, which at the very foundation of that work is about listening to feelings, listening to crying, which can start, in the early months of a baby being born. They're going to have needs, and crying is their communication. And when all of their needs are met, so they've been fed, they're well, they're dry, they've had connection, and they're still wanting to cry, our natural tendency is to sort of put them back on the boob, to put a dummy in, to shush them, to pat them, to get them to sleep, to do all these things. And where parenting focuses on is when all their other needs are met, we can actually get really still, and we can hold them, and we can listen to their tears, because tears are our best way of releasing pain, stress, and trauma. And I found this work when my second son was 4 months old and he was not sleeping. I was chronically sleep deprived. I was desperate. I was considering sleep training, even though I am vehemently against it. For a lot of reasons that are backed up by science and the work of the likes of Gabor Mate and attachment science that says, leaving a baby to cry alone in their cot is a form of nervous system shutdown. So I didn't want to do sleep training. I found crying and loving arms and I did it with my child. And it was the start of my own healing journey, because not only did it help him, it was intense and it was hard, but not only did it start helping him to sleep better, it also started a healing journey for me, which I could talk for hours and hours about. But that's a very sort of quick, I hope, overview of my journey with aware and conscious parenting. Also, connected, responsive, respectful, peaceful, all the other names for these philosophies. But yeah, and I don't tend to use peaceful and gentle, because while I love those philosophies, I believe also they can bring up shame in some people who follow those philosophies and want to be a gentle and peaceful parent, and then wonder, when they've inevitably lost the plot, flipped their lid, yelled, screamed, and raged, then they feel, well, I've failed this as well. I'm not gentle and peaceful. I'm a bad mum. And it starts a bit of a shame cycle. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. I'm just processing all of that and just taking it all in and just thinking, holy moly, that's such important work that you do. But I'm just really feeling that, I'm hearing about this now, really, I've something that I've become more aware of in the last, like after having my third child, basically. And it's not something that I knew about early on, certainly not when I first became a mother, certainly not beforehand. And I just think, it's incredible, isn't it, that we do replicate the ways that we were parented by default. We replicate, and it's obviously we're not taught how to parent, and I really feel that if we had more support before becoming parents in the early stages, it would be just utterly profound, like you say, for just appreciating the whole child, being able to sit with all the emotions, and in turn being able to sit with our emotions and loving and witnessing our whole selves as well. And where I feel like this intersects is with the rites of passages, with the work that I do, and my interest is really, we're not supporting women to move into motherhood as, through that rite of passage, in that way that rites of passages are really supposed to prepare, guide, nurture, like mentor somebody almost, like show them how to move successfully from one role or phase of life into the next, and how to be successful in that. And we just don't do that for any of the rites of passages, whether that's, menarche, the first period, motherhood, and so on. And I'm just really hearing that there's a lot of it's causing a lot of problems. But I'd love to invite you just to speak to that, particularly with this lens of the work that you do, with the emotions, with being able to sit with all of that as a mother. What do you see as being the impacts of not, that it's having when we're not guided, we're not prepared, we're not initiated through that rite of passage into motherhood, for the mother as well as the child.
Yeah, the rite of passage conversation generally is such a big one. I trained with Anna Rubinstein in rites of passage last year, and it's just so crucial for us to have more honoring and ritual around birth and adolescence, and the menarche, and grief as well, and motherhood and fatherhood and marriage, and a lot of these significant stages in our lives are still very much done in an unhealthy rite of passage way. It's like with adolescence, it's all about going off to schoolies here in Australia, which is, drinking, really, and partying, which is fun, but there's no true honoring of that important movement from child to young adult. And then the same, obviously, with your work, it's that moving of the child into the young woman through her bleed. And it's so neat. And I know from my work, it's what's been so missing for so many of the mothers. And then obviously birth is a huge one. And I think, the work of matrescence around understanding that rite of passage from maiden to mother is a huge transformation. And you are taken away from, the environment that you were in previously, single womanhood, a relationship with just you and your partner, into this whole new world of now I have to care fully for this little being. And I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. And why has my body changed? And what are my hormones doing? And your brain has actually physically changed through the process of pregnancy. And, there's so much that's changed. And yet society is still telling us, you need to get your body back, and you need to, get back into work, and you need to get back into exercise and get out there and be a yummy mummy with your baby in the perfect looking pram and just get on with things. And it's not serving women, because that's the way that I think motherhood is still very much marketed to us. Whereas actually in my own experience, motherhood was the deep sort of cracking open into a whole different set of values and realizations of what I wanted in life and what were my priorities, and also into my own wounds and experience. And so much. I mean, just the matrescence alone is such a big conversation, isn't
Massive,
it?
Yeah.
And, it is a rite of passage. It needs to be honored. And unfortunately, a lot of women they're pregnant with their first, and they believe that they need to get the nursery decorated and sorted, and, all the baby clothes and the right pram. And we're focused on the completely wrong things. What we really need is an understanding of what's going to happen to your body and your brain and your partnership and your relationship, what could happen through the birth process, what feelings might come up, how normal it is to experience, postnatal anxiety, depression, grief, birth trauma. Yes, it all sounds really intense, but people need to know these things, because it's real. The reality that you're going to feel completely out of control, and how many deeper emotional wounds that may bring up within you. Your baby is going to cry, and your whole body is going to react with like a feeling of pain. And we need to make it stop right now, because we are so suppressed in society even to listen to tears. There's so much there. And I love, that there's more talk now about matrescence, and there's more support for mothers in matrescence. But even still, things like postpartum doulas is seen as a luxury. And no one really, I work in the parenting space, and in reality, it's hard to convince people to come and get parenting support. They'd much rather go and get their hair cut for $200 or $300 than buy a parenting course. And yet this is I really truly believe this is the most vital work, because it's not just about how you parent your child, it's about how you parent yourself. And it is going to have an impact on the mental health of you and your children over the long term. We just need to change. I mean, this is why we call this work paradigm changing work, because it's turning everything on its head. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah.
Off I went.
Yeah, you did. And I just, it gives me like this whole body reaction hearing your words, because I just know it to be so true for myself. And I had the same experience. I had my first child, and I've had this out of body feeling quite a lot, of just kind of looking, going, why can't anybody see what is happening to me and how I'm changing and feeling? And everybody's fussing about the baby, but I'm over over here kind of on my own, and nobody's looking, nobody's asking, and I can't make sense of it myself. And it was massive. And each child, I don't know if you feel the same, each child was a further extension of that departure from the person I was pre-children. Each birth was a rebirth of me, and I went deeper into it. And the second one was incredibly, after she was born, it was that was the depths. That was really, really deep and dark. But that's ultimately what shifted me on this completely different path
Yeah.
was that experience. And then my third was very healing and empowering and much more conscious as a pregnancy and a birth and postpartum. But it's sort of, we're not, and I hear this is not a common experience, not an uncommon experience. It seems to be that it takes us to go through this process to kind of be cracked into all these different shards of our identity is gone, and you say we can't make sense of all these things, and also who we are and how we fit into the world, and our role and how we interact with that role of mother as well. And it takes us going through this and figuring it out very much by ourselves before we get to any sense of peace with it, or understanding, or finding the gold in it, and the lessons, and using it for some sort of good, or just working out who we are and how we want to be. And it really saddens me, like you say, you can have parenting courses out there like you're offering, but it's not the norm to access that kind of information. And yet the work you do is so powerful in not just how to interact with your child and hold space for your child, but to hold space for yourself as well through this process. And I just think it's amazing. And you're really passionate, I know, about normalizing for mothers these more intense emotions as well, particularly anger, rage, grief, all of those kind of big feelings. And I would love to just hear from you a bit about the work you do on those emotions, and the power of awareness, and how these emotions might come up for women, and I'd also love if we could tie it into the lens of the cycle, like as women's cycles return, and if there's any particular periods or triggers that you notice that really amplify these feelings, and how can, let's normalize it, let's have that chat.
Yes. Yeah, it sometimes blows my mind that I'm here in the world and on socials talking about anger and rage and grief, because 4 years ago I could never even consider that. I was so afraid of those emotions. If someone had lost a friend or a family member and was going through grief, I could not be that person to support them until I had been through my own grief journey. And anger and rage terrified me, and to a certain extent it still can in some aspects, but I have only in the last 2 years realized that I can befriend my own anger and the anger that comes up in my children. I have 3 boys, so there's a lot of big feelings, and sometimes it feels like I've opened the Pandora's box of emotions, like, yes, I'm going to listen to all their feelings, and now it's like, wow, and all the generations before them, it would seem it's all coming up.
Yeah.
And I think, the reality is that our society, as I mentioned at the start, our society very much has suppressed big feelings. When I talk about big feelings, I'm talking about the ones that are uncomfortable. In some spaces it would negative emotions. I don't call it that. I just call them big, because they're very big. We're talking about anger and rage and guilt and shame and fear and disgust and grief and sadness. They're very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And we know that, we've been raised in a society where any of those feelings within us as children would have been suppressed, usually with punishment, maybe mockery, bribery, threats, rewards, whatever the things were. And so then we go through our lives, we've built like coping mechanisms to deal with our feelings. And this is why, like Gabor Mate talks about addiction and shopping, alcohol, cigarettes, social media now, all wonderful coping mechanisms to help you continue to suppress your feelings. But then we enter motherhood, and those tools no longer work, because our children are there in the intensity of their big feelings. And it starts with the baby crying, and it will bring up our wounds And I really do believe, that our children are like our greatest teacher, our little guru who's like pushing, saying, come on, it's time to feel. It's time to do the work. Most people don't want to do it, right? They shut the children down just as they were shut down. But very much the anger and rage will inevitably come up. With the tears, the baby crying, it can just be like, I can't listen to this. I'm feeling scared. I feel fear. I need to shut those tears down with either leaving the baby to cry alone or with a dummy is very normalized. I'm not saying don't use a dummy, but, sometimes if you can start listening to tears, that can be really powerful and healing. But then eventually that little beautiful, sweet baby who might have been actually super chill and didn't cry that much will become a toddler, and they will have a very expressive emotions. They will, their developing brain needs to feel, struggle, and challenge to grow. And they're going to try and do all these things that are going to drive you kind of crazy because maybe you want the clean home or maybe you want to get out of the house on time. And all of these like beautiful, expectations that you have are going to be challenged many, many, many times a day. And eventually you're probably going to be triggered or activated in your body and you're going to have a big reaction, which quite often is straight to anger. It may be shut down and you just disconnect and go into like a freeze response, but quite often for mothers, it is anger. And then we don't talk about our anger to other people because quite often we think we're the only one having an angry response. That was certainly me in the toddler years, losing my lid at my children and then feeling so guilty and ashamed that, here I was wanting to be this peaceful, positive parent and going, I'm a failure, I'm a bad mom. And I can speak about this openly now because I've done so much work. I've done therapy, I've done a huge amount of healing and learning and research in the parenting space, and I hold mothers' circles and I see it's what every mother is struggling with. And so there, the anger comes, the sometimes uncontrollable rage comes, they can lash out at their children, punish them, maybe even smack, hurt them, stuff happens, right? And quite often it's that instant response. And maybe you grab the child's arm too hard and drag them to their room. And we never talk about it because there's so much shame of like, it's me, I'm bad, I'm wrong. But then if we could practice vulnerability and find safe spaces to talk about our feelings and to talk about experiences and normalize the stuff. And, Brené Brown's work is very much around, the strength of vulnerability. If we can be vulnerable and find those safe spaces to talk about the stuff, that's how we can heal. We can normalize, we can heal, then we can bring in the tools to grow in our capacity to understand triggers, to understand why our rage is coming up. And then, obviously, absolutely, we're cyclic and very often in the autumn season before the bleed, and I only learned about this, the sort of work that you do 2 or 3 years ago and found out that we should be resting during our bleed. I haven't done that for the last 30 years of my life. Why am I learning this now? And, and that it's normal to feel really intense emotions in the week leading up to your bleed. And, it can express as a lot of anger and rage, or it could be complete shutdown, or it could be intense grief. If I'd known this, I remember my 20s very much in a season of fun, but also in a lot of coping mechanisms. I spent a whole season, months and months, like quite often in my room on Sundays crying. If I knew what I knew now, I would have understood that that was my just release of emotion from many years of suppressing them in my childhood and in my teenage years. But I thought I was losing my mind. Now, when I cry, yes, I still nurture my body and go, this feels too much. Maybe I'm depressed. Oh, I should call my psychologist. Whereas I can very quickly come from my higher response and go, this is normal. Your feelings just need to come out and you can feel it. And I nurture, I sort of rub on my heart space, and sometimes I do tapping, and sometimes I just, I lie down and let the tears flow. And anger can come up as well, not as much as it used to, because I've done a lot of emotional release processes and a lot of, I have listening partners, parent coaches, a therapist. I have a lot of people to support me. I've had to create a village of healthy, supportive people around where I can practice my own vulnerability. And it's through doing that and finding healing through that I now offer the same to other women and speak of this work quite openly. Because our feelings need to be heard. It's as simple as that. And we all feel the whole spectrum of feelings, and we are meant to, but society will tell us that we are, or our conditioning as well, will tell us that we're wrong, we're bad, you need to just suck it up, stop being a princess, be hard, toughen up, all the stuff that we're fed.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much. Yeah. Oh, so much in there. So I just want to pick out two things. So the first one was about, you talked about the premenstrual phase of the cycle, and I just really, really understand that from my point of view is, that phase, that autumn phase, is very much when everything that has been suppressed will come up to be released, and to be released with the bleed, and to be let go of, and to move into that new cycle. And when we don't appreciate that, like have that understanding of that's what's happening, and it might be boundaries that are being crossed, it might be the way that we're feeling about our hopes and dreams and expectations not being met, it might be about how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about being in a cyclical body, and perhaps having a sense of fear and distrust of our bodies and what's going to happen, with the emotions coming up in that time, and perhaps even pain, or whether it's just simply the lower energy of that half of the cycle, and not feeling comfortable, not being able to accept that we have that lower part of ourselves as well. And I really feel that, that's, if somebody's really experiencing anger, grief, shame, rage, a lot of the other feelings that you were talking about at that time, it's like with the child, it's, they're poking and prodding you, trying to get your attention to acknowledge it and to release it. Does that sound true for what you notice?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think then the key is like first normalizing the fact that we're going to have big feelings and it doesn't make us wrong. And then the second thing is, to a certain extent, making friends, especially with anger, because so many of us as women are terrified of anger. But if we can normalize that it's simply a healthy emotion sending us a message, perhaps of, we're lagging skills, perhaps there's unmet needs, there can be so many reasons, the deeply suppressed emotions. And then we can use that as a signal to go, right, well, what next? What is my unmet need? Or what is my, belief that's under that? What am I making it mean about myself? And then what do I do to release this anger, rather than trying to, because you can't think your way out of it. Like that anger is powerful energy. And if you're yelling at your kids and screaming and losing it all the time, I mean, we're all going to do it sometimes. That's normal, right? And that's why I talk about the power of repair, of showing up, trying to connect with your kids, but on those days where you mess up, you repair. That's, a proper apology. And I have some posts on that on my Instagram. But, if it's constant anger and rage coming up, it needs to be seen, it needs to be heard, and it needs to be witnessed. So in the aware parenting space and hand-in-hand parenting, which is another philosophy I really love, we talk about the benefit of listening partnerships, empathy buddies. Really, really important to have someone to listen to your feelings. For me, I offer mothers circles, I offer listening time. I really encourage the women who are in my groups to partner up and create a listening partnership. And you do need to find someone that you feel safe with, that you trust. At a nervous system level, you need to feel that sense of safety. For me, I have a therapist. I've been through a few different therapists, and I finally went back to my original one who I felt truly safe with, to feel heard. And I have a parent coach, and I have a number of listening partners, and also friends that I feel like I can be really honest and vulnerable with. And that takes time to find the right people for you. And mothers' circles have been a really important place to encourage and talk about and normalize the importance of sharing our feelings and just simply feeling heard and witnessed, and knowing that we're not alone in the experience, and normalizing anger, rage, and all the other feelings that come alongside, everyday parenting.
Yeah. I love that. I think that it's really powerful. So what I'm hearing you saying is that we're not given that village to raise our children. We're not giving that, initiation or welcome into this phase of motherhood. And really we're at a point where we have to kind of do it for ourselves. And so, but not doing it alone, and calling in the people who can really support you and hold you and witness you and hold all of your fullness and all of your feelings help you acknowledge what's within. I think that's really beautiful work, and I hold circles. I just see the power of being able to do that, to hold space for each other, and I think it's a really beautiful work. You hold listening circles for women, don't you, that women can come along to? Is that right?
Yeah, so I focus purely on mothers or any person who connects with the mother. And mine are less spiritual and more simply about listening and sharing. You know, there is the ritual of sitting in circle and creating and honoring of people's, all of their feelings. But they're very simple. I guess my target market would be the people who don't really know what a circle is. And so they quite often come with a lot of apprehension and fear and like, I don't know really what I'm doing here. And in some ways, I guess it's like, a mother's group or a support group. It is simply to practice holding space for each other and to normalize. I usually speak to, perhaps a topic around like self-compassion and the importance of it and what it is, because that feels like a very foreign concept to a lot of people. And then we just open the space for sharing. And that can often be the start of a healing journey. They come, they sit in circle, they hear other women share, their experiences. And I mean, that is what I've always loved. So I've been going to circles for probably about 5 years. And that was the most empowering, mind-blowing part of circle for me, was all these women sharing and sometimes giving words to a feeling that you feel in your body, but you didn't know how to give words to. And someone else speaks and you're like, oh my God, I feel less alone. Like that's just the beautiful power of circle. And then being in a group with other people on the sort of like-minded people on the similar journey is just really beautiful. And I love that group connection that can happen. And then absolutely, speaking to that lack of village, my gosh, it's huge, right? We know that we desperately need village. A lot of people don't have family support generally, and then the pandemic has amplified all of that. And then if we do have family support, but we're wanting to try and raise our children in a conscious, connected, loving way where we listen to their feelings, that can then come with a lot of fear of judgment, a lot of advice, a lot of questioning from the older generation who go, well, in my day, we didn't do this. She just needs a good tap on the bum. So that's really hard for a lot of women to navigate as well. So we need healthy, healed, wise women who are on board, and that can be a real journey to find them.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear myself reflected in a lot of what you have shared today, and I'm really grateful for your wisdom and for this conversation. And I think it's really important that we've brought this topic to life for people to hear and connect with. And if somebody's listening who is deep in this journey, in this place, you're not on your own. You're absolutely not on your own. And there's women out there, as you're hearing, who can support you. And if you're thinking, if you're expecting to be becoming a mother at some point, then really invite you to do this inner work now. Looking at how you can support yourself through, how you can initiate yourself through this rite of passage. Looking up matrescence and Alita's work, and seeing that this is very much the birth of you as a woman into a mother, not just the birth of a baby. I think it's absolutely critical that we collectively start to reframe these experiences as being, vital, obviously, and the rite of passage of a baby being born, and that first imprint and hugely important experience for a child, but for the mother as well, and as well as coming into a more healthy, healed relationship with those bigger emotions. I think awareness is, like all things, awareness is the first step. So absolutely. Is there anything else you'd love to share before we wrap, Alita? Anything that comes to mind?
Just two of the things that I sort of tend to try and hit home for people who are new to the work of, conscious parenting, listening to feelings and nurturing yourself within motherhood is really leaning into a place of surrender is really important, because it's an impossibility for you to be anywhere near perfect. And you likely go into motherhood with all these expectations of how it's going to go, and then you could be faced with a complete opposite. Surrender, surrender, surrender to what is. And as you say, awareness is key. Start with awareness, then you bring in education, then you bring in your support systems. And everyone is so different. We need support and healing in very different ways. I have a lot of friends who are in conscious parenting who do a lot of breath work and energy healing for their healing journey. And for other people, it's therapy, or other people, it's somatic experiencing. There are so many different tools, and it's a journey, and it never ends until the day you die. There is no magic fix. Our children age and new layers of triggers come up. It's just the reality, and it can be really beautiful if you lean into acceptance. And the one tool I would always say to take away is the power of repair. So, if you are a mother and you lose it at your kids, and you yell and you scream or you punish or you hurt them in some way, then repair. There is absolutely a process of repairing the ruptures. That is the gold. It's what didn't happen for most of us as children. It's what still doesn't happen for many children, because there is a belief in many adults that if I say sorry to my child for my behavior, that I'm less than somehow. There's fear that comes into that. But it is, if you're wanting to raise your child with, good mental health and a feeling of connection and secure attachment, repair is the absolute key. Being able to say you're sorry when you mess up. We want our children to be able to do this. We need to start doing it ourselves.
Totally. And by refusing to say sorry, you're maintaining that power over dynamic. And that's the point of it. But by being scared of that, it's being scared of letting go of that dynamic and trusting that there's another way that you can be empowering each other and partnering in this journey of raising children. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. And so just to wrap, I'd love to ask you just our little quick fire questions about you and your cycle. So I love to ask my guests, just what's your favorite phase or season of your cycle?
It's the winter. It now is my winter. It used to be my most hated, but now I'm like, yay, it's here. I can just cancel appointments and rest, and the kids can watch more telly, and I just do whatever I need to do to really be in that season now. Yeah, honoring rest, because it's still very hard for me to slow down and rest.
Yeah, beautiful. So it was your least favorite. So what is now your least favorite phase? If you had to pick one.
I don't think I have a least favorite.
No. Beautiful. And what's the one thing that connecting with your body and cycle has really revealed to you?
How much I missed out on as a teenager. I went to boarding school. And I just remember, there was a lot of talk about periods and bleeding, but there was no honoring of the importance of, resting and why we were having feelings. So, for me, it's learning it in my 40s now as things are changing hormonally again, is the importance of just leaning into it and understanding my cycle is just, I'm learning now. And that's a beautiful thing. It's never too late.
Never too late. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, everybody, if you would like to reach Alita, she is on her website is theawaremama.com.au, and I'll put these all in the show notes. And you're on Instagram at Alita Blanchard Space, is that right? Yep. You have two, don't you? Two Instagram
just use the Alita Blanchard one. So it's Alita Blanchard Space, like SPACE.
Yeah, beautiful. I recommend you all go and have a look over, because she shares so much wisdom, really beautiful prompts, and invitations to kind of take that moment to come back and check in. When I read your posts, I go, it's just a beautiful reminder and disruptor, I think, sometimes. So thank you so much for being here with us. And it was a real honor to be able to chat with you. Thanks, Alita.
Thank you, Charlotte. I'm very honored to be here.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you're loving this podcast and you'd love to help me spread the wisdom shared, please leave a review or rating, or share this with somebody who you think would love to listen in. I'm really passionate about creating ripples of change and getting this information to more women, girls, and people with a cycle so that they can reclaim their cyclic natures too. And if you'd love to dive in deeper with learning more about how to connect with your cycle and rites of passages, come and join our free Wild Flow Circle community, or choose a course and learn with me on my online learning hub. All the links are in the show notes. And until next time, be well and go with the flow of your cyclic nature.